Mushroom Wars 2 is a real-time strategy game that requires you to take charge of a fierce army, crush your withering opponents, and dominate the battlefield.
Sure, if you replace army with tiny mushroom people, opponents with adorable critters, and battlefield with lush little secret gardens.
Prepare for war!
Originally released in 2016 for mobile before being ported to PC, Mushroom Wars 2 is a rather quaint little strategy game that puts a creative spin on the whole multiple warring factions genre.
So Rad, why are we reviewing a game that's over 2 years old, I hear you ask? Well, it's just been released on the Switch, a console that doesn't often see many real-time strategy games. In fact, RTS on console is quite rare, so we thought it was worth seeing if some strategy on the go is just what the Switch needs.
And straight away you can see that mobile pedigree shine through from the game's simple yet unique gameplay. Unlike traditional RTS games, which see you micromanaging single units, here you're put in command of whole waves of troops that you must use to outwit and outmaneuver your opponent.
Yes, and you do this by outnumbering them. Each stage begins with a set number of structures dotted about the map. You must then work to increase the size of your army by upgrading your villagers. Once you have enough warriors, you can send a specific amount to go forth and capture opposing structures. As long as your troops outnumber theirs.
Ah, yes, the Mushroom Wars truly are wars of attrition.
I don't know how healthy it would be to eat these particular mushrooms, Darren.
Negative, not nutrition. Attrition. It means to reduce the strength of your opponent through sustained pressure. It's a tried and tested tactic of many a strategist. By not giving your opponent a single moment of respite, you can overwhelm them, leading to glorious victory.
Downright devilish, Darren, but he is right. The bigger your army, the better your chances. And this style of gameplay cleverly shifts attention away from troop versus troop conflict, instead allowing you to focus on the big picture.
Plus, I think this helps keep matches relatively short and manageable. Along with villages that continually spawn more of your mushy military, there are also towers that fire on troops within range and forges that improve your unit's attack and defense. These can all be upgraded at the cost of some of your troops. They've probably all been promoted.
Oh, everything you need to know is drip-fed to you through the game's campaign mode. And while the tutorial moves at a snail's pace, eventually you are introduced to the game's more interesting heroes and their skills, which are abilities that can be activated mid-battle to hopefully turn the tide in your favour. And these change depending on which hero you do select, with some heroes' abilities being more offensive than defensive.
And they do add another much-needed layer of strategy to the fights. But Goose, am I alone in saying that this is where the limitations of the console controls really started to stick out?
I'm glad you brought this up, because good controls are crucial to an RTS. Things can get super fiddly, so they're best played usually with a mouse pointer.
Yeah, absolutely. And overall, I do think they've done a pretty good job of working with the Switch's layout. For example, having the target reticles stick to structures helps it feel less like a replacement for a mouse cursor. But more than that, I think we're overlooking the obvious here.
Touchscreen controls?
Touchscreen controls! The mobile version of this game proves that not only do they work, but they work better. And sure, the Switch needs to work in docked mode too, but not even having them as an option when playing in handheld mode was infuriating.
Yeah, it's a strange omission that only really highlights the fact that thumbstick controls are never the best way to play these kind of games. Especially considering that playing this online is cross-platform, putting Switch players at a sizable disadvantage.
That's all true, but I do think that online play is where the most fun is to be had. Especially when you have up to 3 other armies to contend with, all not knowing who will attack who, watching little unspoken truces build up and break down. It's far more exciting than going up against the AI.
Yeah, I much preferred coming back to this for quick online sessions rather than slogging through that repetitive campaign. Although having all the heroes already unlocked from the start means winning the battles feels a bit pointless. And again, I just can't help thinking that the Switch might not be the best fit for this game.
Yeah, it's a tricky one, isn't it? At its core, Mushroom Wars 2 is a challenging little RTS that's easy to pick up and play. And if the Switch is your main gaming device, then there's some good strategy to dig into. I'm giving it 3 out of 5 rubber chickens.
Well, Rad, while I can't fault the gameplay here, I just didn't find myself drawn back to play anymore. I mean, maybe it's those console controls or that bland overall design, or just the fact that the Switch version of this game feels a tad undercooked. I'm giving it 1.5 out of 5 rubber chickens.
Undercooked mushrooms are the worst.
Ugh. No, thank you.